farts and stuff.
Right, there we go. Right. Okay, guys, welcome to a long overdue Mamemeister and Chums talk, Pish, and it's been a few years, and I could not restart. I couldn't have asked for a better quality of guest. He's not just a former YouTuber; he's a friend of mine. It's Mr. Mark Lactobacillusprime. Out of 10, how was my pronunciation of Lactobacillus?
I think it's proper shit. No, I think you did great. You did great with the pronunciation.
I could never ever. I can't even remember what I used. I can't remember. I used to pronounce it completely wrong, and then I heard you saying it, or I heard somebody else mention it. I thought, right, okay, obviously. Is it a play on? Is it a play on? What do you call it? What's that big robot film?
Yeah. It's my fascination with biology, but also, of course, Optimus Prime. Lactobacillus prime. Actually, it stems from the fact that I'm quite a fan of cows, dairy products, cheeses, but I'm lactose intolerant. And
are you really?
If you consume those, well, then it's.
Oh, seriously? So you love it and you can't actually eat it?
Well, with these enzymes, you can. So, but yeah, you don't want to spoil the air for the others around you.
So how did you know that you were lactose intolerant?
Just because of these. The smelly, the smells, the belly, the discomfort, gastrointestinal.
Did you get like gas and that kind of stuff? Just felt constantly bloated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because, as you probably know, I used to do a lot of like long distance running, and then in the last, I'd probably say 4 years, I was getting all manner of problems with being bloated, and that was something that never bothered me. And then it was a bizarre thing because I could go out for a 10-mile run and I'd be fine, and then I could go out for a 10-mile run and I would get 100 yards and I'd have to stop and come home because I was like, it felt like I drunk 2 of these big 2-litre bottles of juice. I drunk them all and then trying to run, you're like. So I stopped. I cut out all milk. I cut out all dairy products, which was a tough thing for me because I love butter. I love cheese. I was brought up with like my mum and dad. I mean, they've long passed on, but I was brought up in old-fashioned food, so like cheese and milk, and I don't have butter with my toast. I have toast with my butter. I mean, it's people when I go to a cafe, they'll say, or if I get a scone, they'll say, they'll give you 1 butter. I goes, can I get another 4, please? And they're like, what are you wanting that for? Because I'm putting it on my scone. Like 2 bits spare half a scone.
But is that something that your whole family does, or is that something that you just picked up from your mom and dad?
But yeah, I mean, it was something that we've always eaten a lot of dairy products. I think my sisters and that still do. So I laid off it for maybe 6 months, and it didn't make a monkey's difference. So then I was talking to a mate, and he said, try gluten, try cutting out gluten. So I was I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands, but the UK are gradually we are latching on to like alternative eating, and vegan seems to be a real buzzword at the moment. Everybody's going vegan. And so, I mean, a couple of years ago when I was trying to cut out gluten, you would go to the local supermarket and you would have all these rows and rows of lovely food, and then you had this tiny little section gluten-free, and it's like, so I can either have that one bread. So you didn't have a choice. It was either, right, I'll take the gluten-free bread, and it's more expensive. And again, it didn't make a monkey's difference. So I've given up running, and I'm back to eating butter and cheese. And
oh well, yeah. Well, I guess, yeah. It's. I mean, gluten. I mean, I'm not an expert at it, but I think gluten isn't necessarily the same as healthy, because gluten is also the fiber, basically the fiber in your food. And if you cut out the fiber, well, they always say eat a lot of fiber, right? So I think just having a varied diet is the best way to go. And if you go vegan, it could be a very healthy diet, but also take into account that you have the what is it, the digestive system of an omnivore. And then yeah, I hear an echo. Do you hear it as well? Or?
No, it's fine this side, mate.
Oh, I hear my own echo. I'll just try to ignore it. Let me see. What was I on about?
Yeah, you were talking about like vegan and that kind of stuff, and obviously cutting out your fiber and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. I think if you are going to do something like vegetarian, veganism, you should take into account being very how do you say that, sensible about what you eat, and also the spore elements and that kind of stuff, because you'll miss out on those if you cut out meat. But you can have plant-based sources for that and stuff. So,
yeah, my girlfriend's son, he was vegan for about 2 years, and during COVID, he moved up from London, and he was basically staying with my girlfriend again, staying with his mum for about 6 months. And I mean, I'm inherently lazy when it comes to cooking. My idea of making a complicated dinner is having to put the baked potato into the microwave and cutting out the wee bad bits. You know, that's far too laborious for me. So, you know, when I used to watch him prepare a vegan meal, and yeah, it's I understand that people love cooking, but I'm just not one of them. When a meal takes longer to prepare than it does to eat, then forget it. But here's the thing: we went to a cafe in Falkirk, and it was a vegan cafe, and I got, what did I get? I got what was it? It was a bacon roll. It was a bacon roll, but it was like, you know, the old bacon. It wasn't real bacon. So it kind of amuses me, the fact that vegans, we're going down a whole political, we're going to get a lot of thumbs down now. But anyway, it amazes me that it's like vegans, they don't want to eat meat, but they still want to have bacon flavored.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, you know. So why have it to be pretend meat when it's obviously not?
But yeah,
I think it cuts both ways, actually. You know, people who do want to be vegan, but you know, can't live without the taste. I mean, if it's one of your, you know, your prime meals, then going vegan, doing the fake bacon and the fake sausages might actually help. I'm not sure. I think it's also something to do with the way our brains are wired. You know, we like fatty, greasy stuff. You know, and and I mean, what else is there fatty and greasy other than avocados or peanut butter or peanuts or something? I'm not sure, but no, but you can grow up very healthy being a vegan. A good friend of mine, she's from America, and she has a son who's about 7 or 8 now, I guess, and he just grew up completely vegan. But she is very sensible about food and is really, how do you say that? Yeah, she really puts a lot of effort and time into cooking and preparing meals, and that's actually the same friend who I visited way back in the 90s, where around this time I was visiting, and I was standing outside in piles of snow with her dad, and he was doing the barbecue, and you know, big hamburgers and stuff, and we were all eating them. So I mean, it's a choice some people make, and I mean, I love food, And I really don't care if it's vegetarian. I mean, there's a lot of Indian dishes, a lot of Asian dishes that are just completely vegetarian. And I find that a lot of the fake meat products, the real meat products that you have these days, a lot of it also has to do with texture and the way it's all marinated or
Yeah.
the herbs used, and basically I found out that a lot of the times it's just, the seasoning and the texture and the herbs, and then, and sausages. Perhaps 2% in a sausage is actually meat. The rest is just flour.
And that's the non-vegetarian ones are there's probably like 2% meat in them. I mean, to be fair, Ben, that's my girlfriend's son, he made me, he would make a meal for us, and some of them were delicious. Don't get me wrong, some of them were like, I would rather have a proper steak, whatever, but some of them were delicious. And you say that they've come on in leaps and bounds as far as replicating like chicken. And I mean, I remember when I was 17, I was into the CND, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. I was vegetarian. I was an angry teenager, and I remember going for a meal with my mum and dad, and this would be 1985, and they said, "Oh, what would you like?" I'm vegetarian. What have you got? Well, we could do. I shit you not. This is without a word of lie. We could do you a plate of carrots and lettuce. Yeah, that would be nice. That's what I had. That was all they could give me: carrots and lettuce.
Yeah, that's cool.
Things have moved on a lot. I know, but anyway, listen. Are you the tallest person on YouTube? I think you must be. You're certainly the tallest friend of mine's anyway. I mean, you must be 7'6", something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I just barely can move through a doorway without. I mean, that's the reason why I'm just follically challenged like that.
You keep bashing all your hair. Yeah, I mean, we met. Blimey, it must be. We met in Blackpool. It must be about 5-6 years ago now, eh?
Yeah,
That's
scary. 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, and we were looking out for each other, and I mean, I could see you a mile away. It's like when you see the films where wee kids got a red balloon, you can just see the wee red balloon. I could see your head for miles away. You couldn't see me because I'm like 5'3" or something. I'm tiny.
It's actually quite funny that you say that. Like you could see me a mile away, and I was just like, oh, who's that? You just got up on me.
You almost tripped over me.
You don't look small on camera or tiny. Small. I'm not tiny. I mean, I'm just huge.
You're just freakishly huge. Yeah. So how? Well, in fact, I've just got a couple of things. How's the channel going? I still do watch you. You seem to be focusing a lot more on sort of emulation and kind of high spec emulation. And I do watch your videos because you're the go-to bloke when I've got any issues with kind of trying to emulate PlayStation. What are you kind of focusing on at the moment? Not even from a YouTube point of view, gaming wise. What are you where are you?
Well, it's funny that I've actually been playing some current gen games, basically because my wife has been playing current gen games. I actually was fortunate enough to pick up a PlayStation 5 by having one of these websites that constantly check local how do you say it?
Suppliers,
yeah. Yeah, so actually we got a PlayStation 5 and she'd been using a PlayStation 4 Pro, which sounded like a Hoover. I mean, she turned it on and it would just vibrate the entire house. And she was amazed by how quiet it was. And she was playing Horizon Zero Dawn. She was playing God of War. She was playing the Tomb Raider games. And I've actually been playing those as well over the past year, I guess. For me, it was I always played the arcade games more. I don't have the time to just sit down for hours, and go through an entire story. and I focused on retro gaming more because you can pick it up and play. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that I do enjoy the story-driven games and the campaigns and stuff. Both of us were not playing online. I mean, I don't want to, be encountered by some individual that can spend like 80% of their living time. They sleep like 2.5 hours and then they just game.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't compete with that.
Yeah.
But I've also found out that things like Geometry Wars, I like twin stick shooters. I always pick that up, and I'm not too shabby at level 3 of Geometry Wars 3. Basically, I'm like in the I'm not too shabby. I'm like if you rank, it's available on many different platforms. You'll see my name pop up quite high up.
Right. Is that the latest? Is that the one that I'm trying to think? I mean, it originally came out as part. It was an in-game on Project Gotham on the original Xbox. It was an in-game, and then they released it on the 360 as Geometry Wars. Then Geometry Wars 2 came out on the Xbox 360. Then did they bring out? I'm trying to think. Did they bring out? They brought out the third one, like Geometry Wars Evolution or something. Is it Evolution or something? It's on the. I've got it on my PlayStation 4. Yeah.
Yeah, it's out on, and indeed it came out on the Xbox 360, also the PlayStation 3, but it's been ported over to the Xbox One and
Series X.
4.
Yeah.
It's also out on Android. I take it with me on the GPD. I'm still rocking this one.
I've still got mine. Yep. Pound for pound, that's still the best handheld, I think.
Yeah. There's a little glitch with the battery that you encountered once, right? I mean, when it was all drained, you couldn't charge it anymore or something like that.
Yep, and I had to sell it because I couldn't get it to come back on again.
Okay, well, there's just a little glitch that you have to do. Then you don't have to sell it.
Right, you'll need to share that nugget information with me because I'm always conscious. Always make sure I can top it up. Every now and again, but to be fair, the battery does. You can not use it for 6 months, put it on, and it's still got 98% battery. It's good. Sorry, anyway, you're talking about Geometry Wars, so it's on the Android as well.
Yeah, it's on Android, and you also have it on the Vita. And gosh,
the Vita as well, really?
Yeah. It's actually on a surprising. Oh, and there's a native Android port, native Linux port. And of course, PC, Windows. So and I'm playing them all.
What do you think? What do you find appealing about the game?
I think it gets me in the zone, and the zone is something that when you do experience it, I get that with the Jeff Minter games also.
Yeah.
It's just a flow. And with the geometry games, there is a pattern. There's a predictable pattern, like many shooters have, right? And somehow even when you progress further, because of your reflexes, you just keep playing and you keep moving out of the way and stuff. But you really get into the zone the moment you leave known grounds. If I'm beating my high score. Oh, I haven't gotten to this part yet. And then you get this almost ASMR like experience. You know that you are, improving on yourself, and it's like, it's like tunnel vision and not and at the same time. So it's like super. I mean, and your heart goes racing. It's like you're being high. It's like fantastic.
Now, see, I could crop this video and we could be talking about gluten free, and suddenly you're talking about getting high. And that's what you do if you drink too much milk, kids.
Yeah, and chew on my.
But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you've said everything that I would say. Games like you're old school, you're hardcore like myself. You know, you were around in the early days, and it's taking a game. It's like stripping a game back. If you've got something like Call of Duty, I don't know what the latest Call of Duty is. I don't really care. It's all window dressing. If you actually stripped Call of Duty back, at the end of the day, you're pushing up, you move forwards, you pull back, your character moves back, you move left, you move right, and you fire. It's really, and you've got your right trigger to aim. It's the same game. The Call of Duty and every other third-person
Oh
shooter,
yeah,
it's the same game as
I think
Geometry
I
Wars.
think
There's no difference.
I think yeah. Who dares wins on the Commodore 64 or the Spectrum? You know, I mean that's
It's Geometry
Commando
Wars, isn't it? It's
and Geometry Wars. Yeah,
or we'll give it we'll tip its hat to its granddaddy Robotron. It's every game is based on Robotron, up, down, left, and right, and fire.
You did play that with 2 joysticks, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
because but also on the Commodore 64, 2 joysticks. Atari.
I did. I played. What did I play? I did play. There's the best version of Robotron until I'm going to tell you a wee secret in a second. The best version of Robotron at the moment that exists, I would say, is analog software. I think it was called Cybertron. And yeah, you have to configure it. Back in the day, it was a bit of a palaver. Apart from anything, who could afford 2 joysticks back in 1983? You know, you couldn't afford.
No, always putting around.
But now
you've port 1. Oh, it's port 2.
You've got. What was I going to say? You've now got the luxury of like an Xbox 360 controller, so you can configure it, and it's awesome. I'll tell you the best twin stick shooter on the Commodore 64 for my money is Smash TV.
Oh,
it is absolutely fantastic. I did an Arcade Perfect my arse about 6 months ago, and I think that was with the last version. And I'll hear this is going to be absolutely shit. I'm like, holy, this is really good, and it's go and check it out, play it, Smash TV on the C64.
I know it well. Yeah,
and make sure you play it. Yeah, it's an excellent game. You've got to play these games. I mean, yeah, back in the day playing Robotron, it was like one joy. I think you could only fire in the direction that you were moving, which completely breaks the game.
That's the thing. Of course, the arcade has twin controls, and most games on PC also, a lot of them they did tank controls, or shooting into the direction where you were running in. I guess it basically had to do with the fact that you only had one fire button. I mean, Atari, Commodore, only one fire button. Things improved with the MSX, 2 fire buttons.
That's right. Yeah,
2 fire buttons. Nintendo, Super Nintendo. Yeah, the more buttons we got.
And apparently, not apparently. I think it's factual. The Amiga could quite easily cater to be 2 fire buttons, but for whatever reason, they just never really used it.
It was all just with platformers, also up to jump.
And I hate that. Yeah. You're trying to jump on it. That's my pet. Well, my pet hate with my pet hate's, well, I don't like pressing up to jump, but we had to kind of live with that. My pet hate is any 8 or 16-bit driving game where you've got to hold the joystick forwards.
Yeah, moving the joystick forward. I mean, I love driving games. Driving games is just, oh man. Also the newer ones, I'm just like totally blown away.
Yeah, your Horizons and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Horizons and the Dirt 5. Dirt 5 is also, I mean, I get to drive in my own car. There's like this Skoda Fabia thing that you can drive. I have a Skoda, so I'm like wow, all over the place. No, but there's something about these old driving games. I mean, I loved it was by Epics. I'm totally blank now. I mean,
Super Cycle. Super Cycle, Pit Stop 2.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Pit Stop 2. Super Cycle was actually one of the first games that I really thought was bang on,
Yeah,
when it comes to the
arcade.
technology.
Yeah.
And I guess when I saw the first polygon-based racing games that actually had better physics,
What would it
yeah,
be? And
that was actually what actually made them more real for me. And then looking back, there were a lot of 8-bit racing games with proper physics, and those I enjoy now as well. More
like
than
Revs. Could you ever play Revs on the
Revs,
C64?
2 frames per second, but it was amazing.
It
I
was-
mean, play it on the BBC. It's a lot faster.
Aye. This is the wonderful thing, emulation, though. You could stick it in Vice on the C64 and just ramp the speed up to 400%, and you've got yourself
Yeah.
a really good. The only problem is that the minute will go down in like 10
Oh
seconds.
yeah. Well, you get to have more races then. Life goes by. Yeah. No.
So,
but, yeah.
So where are you with like your emulation and that kind of stuff? You are doing a lot of like what do you use for emulation, like when you're doing your PlayStation 2 and that kind of stuff? And does it require like a monster PC to kind of run these things?
Yes and no. Yeah, I think you can get away with very, middle of the road gaming capable PCs from half a decade ago, perhaps even longer. I find it very interesting to have the highest level of emulation going on the weakest systems. There's a lot of stuff you can do with a Raspberry Pi, which actually is surprisingly powerful considering actually, but no, but for example, there's RetroArch. Yeah, it's a bit of a monster. It uses all sorts of emulator cores that actually stem from standalone emulators. A lot of these have been ported into some sort of plugin for the RetroArch. Yeah, that basically does a lot of stuff. But there's also a lot of standalone emulators. For example, PCSX2 for PlayStation 2. That has just been progressing enormously, and basically all games run with it right now. And
Really?
I get full speed on my old little red Dell, which actually is a third generation i7 and a low end GTX NVIDIA graphics card, and it just runs.
You're getting full speed with that?
Yeah, especially
Really?
with one of the latest developers builds. They use Vulkan, and Vulkan is, for some reason, even for older hardware and older graphics cards, it's actually quite doable. And with PCX2, you have a different executable also for newer processors that use the multimedia extensions AVX2. I'm not sure what that actually is all about, but if you were able to use that, actually the emulation is even a lot faster, and games run at 60 frames per second. Very little input lag. I've always been quite partial to the PlayStation 2. I mean, it's one of my biggest collections actually. Xbox original, and I have one of these PlayStation 2 Slims in my game room, hooked up over Ethernet. I have a NAS dedicated to PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 game files, all written myself. And it plays them over the network with a free boot thing. Also,
oh yeah, that's good.
So I was playing that to have the best experience. But now with emulation, it's easier to fire up the PC, and actually you don't really notice the difference that much. And actually, I mean, proper software emulation. If they got the timing right, the input lag can be as little as just with regular games. FPGA, I have this Mr. thing that's over there. FPGA is great, but it's also emulation. I mean, it's people say, well, it's like 100% like the original. Well, yes and no, because it's an approximation of the original schematics, chip function. So it's also emulation, but it's everything is happening at the same time, in parallel.
Yeah.
And with emulation, you have this loop, this single loop, and more modern emulators, they use all the cores, all the threads that you have. PlayStation 3 emulation, man, that's just insane. I was just very curious if that actually works, like a couple of years ago even. And now, if you look at how well it works, even on lower end systems, it's just mind-boggling. It's just incredible. The only thing is that the PlayStation 3 is just this weird system with a lot of threads and a lot of things going on at the same time. You know, to be able to program that properly, you really do have to use multi-threaded software. You know, and the thing is, if you want to emulate it, you need a computer with a lot of threads. So you know, even like an i7 with 4 cores and 8 threads. I mean, you'd think, well, you know, that's enough. You can play the latest games with those. But with PlayStation 3 emulation, well, early games that just used a single processing unit, you know, early ports, they run fine. But the latest games, they just, you know, use the PlayStation 3 to the max, and yeah, then even 8 threads is not enough. You really need a Ryzen, or you know, that's crazy. That's just crazy.
I've tried. I mean, I've kind of. I'll be honest. I find like I was very comfortable with like dabbling with emulators. I've been doing it all my life. I do find emulators like the PCX X2 quite complicated. You need to kind of know what you're doing. I think I don't know if it just runs well off the bat, or do you have to tweak it. I've got a wonderful thing called CoinOps, which I don't know if you've got CoinOps. I mean, and I mean it's like I don't have any issues with downloading games that are no longer commercially available. You can call it piracy, but I would argue and say, well, I'm not finding anyone any money, but there's a website you can go and you can just grab all these different, you know, people will say, right, we've supported the Wii U and and I think right now my CoinOps folder, I think it's sitting at about 7 terabyte. It's enormous, and it is
fun. 7 terabytes.
Yeah. Actually, what I did was I thought, right, you know what, I'm running. I mean, I've got a very small SATA drive, whatever it is, in my Windows, and then every other drive is just a plug-in USB, which isn't exactly optimal, but you know what, it does me. So I thought to myself, right, you know what, I better back this up, because I had taken months to download all these. There you go. Yep, I've got loads of these, mate. Absolutely loads of them.
You and me are doing very similar things.
They're the cheapest. Like, the thing is, I'm digressing. What I did is I thought, right, I need to back up my CoinOps, so I got myself a 10 terabyte drive. It was something like 180 quid or something, and I backed it up, and I think it took the best part of about 2 weeks to actually copy all the files, because it's millions of files, and you know how long it takes. And then I got not this is a MacBook I'm using. I've got an old what do you call it? An old laptop. So I brought it downstairs the other day. There, plugged it into the TV, and I was going to copy CoinOps onto it. Well, not 7 terabytes, maybe copy like 100 gig or something. And I thought, wait a minute, I've got CoinOps on this USB drive. So I plugged it in, and it just plays perfectly. So I could come to your house with my USB and just plug it in, and we could play CoinOps using this. It's phenomenal. I mean, it emulates the Wii U. It does Does it do the PlayStation 3? I think it may do. Yeah, it does. It's got a few games. One game that I notice always runs like shit is God of War. Is that a particularly taxing game? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, CoinOps. Actually CoinOps used to be. I mean, to configure CoinOps is actually a beast. I mean, if you have a configured CoinOps with all the emulators plugged in,
Yeah, this is all plugged in. Yeah.
it's very similar to Launchbox because you've been experiencing with Launchbox as well, right? I mean, and that's actually a lot easier to configure. But basically, you can get to do the same thing. You have a folder Launchbox, and everything else is contained within. And you're right. I mean, a lot of these emulators, they are quite involved, when it comes to the settings and stuff. And a lot of people, they just love that, It's like PC gamers
Tinkering.
usually love that, It's like, oh, it's just console games, but now I get to tinker, And for me, I guess, being a PC gamer also, being a, one of these old home computer dudes that programmed and, whatever. I guess emulators allow you to tinker, allow you to actually playing PlayStation 2 games at 4K. I mean, it has its pluses, but it also has a lot of drawbacks. I mean, textures and stuff is not. It's all. Yeah, basically, it was all designed for standard definition TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's quite interesting because you also get to know some of the secrets. And I'm on a bit of a tangent, but I'll get back to PlayStation Portable. There's a PlayStation Portable emulator, PPSSPP or something like that.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, it's in RetroArch also. PlayStation 2 also in RetroArch. Then it's just more drag and drop click. I mean, RetroArch is actually the way to go. If you don't want to tinker that much with all the settings. But if you do, and you can actually within RetroArch, but if you do, I found that upscaling PlayStation Portable games and also seeing the complexity of the geometry used, that basically you think that they somehow might have envisioned, UMD drive, one of these drives for the PlayStation 3 to play the PlayStation Portable games on the PlayStation 3, because if you upscale them to 720p, and that's like 2 or 3 times the resolution of the original, the textures hold up, the polygons hold up, and basically the PlayStation Portable actually, probably was designed to be on the big screen also. I mean,
was there not was there not an official cable or something that you could plug in into your TV?
There's this weird Vita thing, the PlayStation TV, and the Vita
it's a
also
Vita.
has a lot of, but the PlayStation Portable, no, it never had any video out, I believe.
It's a Vita.
Did. Yeah, well, it did. It had component video. It had component video out. Only the first model actually had a cable that you could plug in, and then it had component out. But
did it not need some? I might be talking utter nonsense. Was there not some kind of like Sony box or something you had to buy with it? Some kind of adapter which is like super rare or something, or was that the Vita I'm thinking of? I can't remember.
I've seen some videos where they had a PlayStation Portable, but it was a dev kit. So I guess and the VR with the PlayStation VR, which has me vomit projectile. I mean, I can't cope with it, but that hooks up like a whole spider. It looks like a Raspberry Pi then, with all the wires sticking out. And I love the concept of VR, but I just can't stomach it. Literally, it's just not my not how I roll. So it sits in the attic.
Is it really?
I'm trying to give it away or sell it, but nobody wants a PlayStation VR these days. But,
I think there's a new one. Sorry, you've gone off on a tangent and you forgot.
Oh yeah,
you were talking about the PlayStation emulator, the PSP emulator.
Yeah, and also about how involved these things are, and you actually see that a lot of these emulators they come with their own front ends. You have Redream for the Dreamcast, and it basically has if you point to the folder where all the games are, it just actually has the box art. It just
Oh, the
pops.
thumbnail. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, PlayStation 3 emulator, the RPCS3. It also has it just takes the art from the game folders itself. And I've actually my PC down there. It actually has a Blu-ray drive that allowed me to rip the games because PlayStation 3 Blu-rays of course they have a proprietary format. If you just can't copy the files over, then it just doesn't work. So you have to use a specific set of software, and then it just chews and grinds and grinds and grinds. And about 2.5 hours later, you have a single game. I mean, what do? Of course, you transfer all your games, even when not all of them are playing. But yeah, and things like Zemu and CXBX, original Xbox emulation. I was not going to go for Xbox emulation because I was foolish enough to believe that Microsoft with the Xbox One X would have this all-encompassing platform where you can just stick in any place of any Xbox game, no matter what generation, and it would just play. Of course, it doesn't. I mean, a couple of months ago, I just had a stack of my games, like, okay, let's see what plays on the Xbox. Well, just a single game just did it, and they can actually, but they won't. That's the thing that bugs me. And then I say, well, I wanna play my Xbox games even when my original Xbox, the big time capacitor, if it screws it up, I just want to be able to play the games. Of course, I have a couple of extras, like you do, but yeah, at some point in time, you just want to be able to play Prophet Gotham Racing or Outrun. I've had that. I need Outrun. I need to play it everywhere. So yeah, Zemu, CXBX. One is like a proper emulator that just does everything, like a DOSBox like thing does only specific bits of a computer. Zemu does it all. It's like a virtual machine. CXBX, they do high level emulation. So basically they emulate the processor, but have a lot of the graphics calls, sounds calls. They have different stuff for it. It's like the old Nintendo emulator. Back in the 90s, you had Ultra HLE.
Yeah.
And you could have Super Mario 64 run on, or Mario 64. You could have it run on a low-end Pentium or something like that, and it was just freaking amazing. But it could only run that game because it was like partially translated almost, and that you see that with these high-end emulators as well, because the PlayStation 3 emulator also does this trickery. It just recompiles the software. It just reads the code, recompiles it, and then it has some sort of intermediate code that just runs with their own API. Some emulators go the route of completely redoing the hardware, and then all sorts of weird stuff, unreleased stuff will work on it. And other emulators, they just focus on the software that's out there. They want to have it up and running. I'm actually more of a fan of the complete thing. You really encapsulate all the functionality, and yeah, what if some person decides to write new software for a platform? Like is happening for a lot of these systems as well. You really need to have 100% compatibility, otherwise new software won't run, right?
Yeah. I totally understand. I mean, emulation. I was actually in my Friday waffle. I did a sort of a MAME special. MAME is the single most greatest bit of software ever, bar none.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, that word emulation, had I even heard of that before then? I don't think I'd ever heard of emulation. I think that was a word that just popped up when I started getting into emulating systems. I totally understand why old farts like ourselves, when we got our Pentium 60s or whatever it was, you suddenly thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to be able to play Manic Miner on the Spectrum or Uridium on the Commodore 64? And suddenly there was all these emulators popping up in the back of Amiga User, Amiga Power, send off this disc, play hundreds of games, and they were like playing at like 30%. So I understand why emulation exists, because people want to go back and recreate their youth. They want to revisit the nostalgia and the old rose-coloured spectacles. Who do you think, like, you're talking? I mean, what there'll obviously be people who will be working on PlayStation 4 emulators at the moment. That's bound to be happening, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And who do you think their target market is, their target audience? Do you think they're doing it because they just like to do it? They're essentially hackers, aren't they? They're doing it just because they enjoy it. And if they do, I mean, for example, you've touched on PlayStation 3 emulation, PlayStation 2 emulation. You know, that's now very much a real thing. Who do you think is actually going to want to use these emulators? Because the reason I tend not to emulate when I'm doing any of my live streams, I genuinely don't do any CD-based systems. It's because a CD takes up quite a bit of space, and when you get in the realms of an Xbox 360, I don't even know if there is an Xbox 360 emulator. There is, I'm probably sure there is. I mean, a modern game now, you're talking 60 gig, aren't you? It's like,
oh yeah, that's crazy.
So who do you think uses these emulators? Why do you think they're making them? Do you think they're making them because they can?
Yeah, and also something about two things. Your question, and then something I thought about. Not wanting to emulate optical media, thanks to MAME and something like a CHD. Those were the nasty big MAME files that nobody wanted to download because some crappy CD-based game would partially emulate in MAME. Well, the same thing is used within RetroArch for emulating a lot of, and also other emulators actually, for severely compressing down without loss CD images, DVD images. So and it's like compression rates 60% sometimes. It's like really huge. Not all emulators support it, but it's something to consider if your front end supports it and the emulator supports it, to compress your files that way. And you also can bring them back. You can also make ISO files again from them. But and then the other question, like, for who do they make them? I think it's like the old demo programmers. You make those emulators to show off how your experience. It's flexing the brain muscle. Modern Vintage Gamer. I'm not sure if you watch his channel, but he actually was the author of quite a few of the emulators on Xbox, on the original Xbox.
Oh, right, yeah, they're
and
brilliant.
And basically what he just loves developing. And he's been developing for the newer systems. He actually properly ported Doom again for the new Xbox, for example. He ported it to the Xbox original in a homebrew variant. But so I guess the programmers themselves, it's they're not being paid for it, or sometimes they do have a patron, or some emulators have a fee or something like that. I think it's just because they like to do it, and they like to keep the systems alive. Preservation, perhaps. Piracy for some. I guess, and the users. Well, I guess most folk will just use. They use a switch. Why emulate a switch? I mean, I can do it, but why? It's a current system, and but dead systems. Yeah, I can see the preservation aspects of it. I don't. Yeah, well, there are actually. I know a couple of 14-year-olds that are just very intrigued by gaming, and actually they're my nephews, and they want to come visit the game room and the game room. But I've actually made some emulations collections for them, so they get to experience. The original PlayStation. Oh, that was before, before PlayStation 4 and 5. Oh, wow, that's interesting. It's like a generation of kids that just like we. I mean, my mom and dad. I mean, I grew up listening to their records, and my musical taste is the taste of someone perhaps 10 years older. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
very much into. I mean, I watched an interview from Phil Collins or Paul Carrick, and I really like their outlook on music, how they are influenced by certain artists, and I'm actually influenced by the same artists, but they're like
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 years old. I mean, they could have been, parents or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I guess emulators and the popularity of all these handheld games with the old games on it. I guess it's kids wanting to know the roots of gaming as well. I mean,
A thing that I was thinking about when I was doing my waffle on Friday was I was talking about MAME, and I made a statement, and whether it's true or not, and I just thought, I wonder if that would be the case. Had it not been for MAME, do you think we would have seen all these collections, Namco collections, Konami collections, and all that? Because really, MAME was the first emulator that suddenly went bang. Suddenly, people and more companies like Namco goes, hang on a second, there's all these kids playing illegal copies of Pac-Man. We need to get some of this, and so of course every single platform, the PlayStation 2, PSP, you get your Namco museums and all this. Do you think that MAME heavily influenced? Because they must use the MAME code. They must have. I'm sure the developers of MAME must have been asked by a lot of these companies. Look, do you
some
want
stuff is open source. Some stuff is, of
Mhm.
course, open source. But you also have this very prolific group M2, which is behind a lot of these reprogrammed, semi-emulated re-releases of console games on newer consoles. Yeah, I guess MAME. I mean, isn't it like 25 years old?
Yeah, it was
Like
20.
now?
It came out. I read it the
Just
other day. It
yeah,
came out. It came out on the 24th of December,
yeah.
1996.
Yeah, and I was aware. I
1996.
mean, I actually used the first build, and actually at university there were a few people who knew. I was in. Yeah, there's like five nodes between you and a certain person in the world. Well, yeah, I knew people who knew the Italian bloke that actually was doing it. Oh, sorry about that.
That's,
No
is that your
fire
tea?
alarm or something, but no, it's an old alarm. No, I guess a lot of these arcade games and collections, yeah, MAME, and the fact that you had a single emulator providing a huge amount of games to a user is, yeah, sure. But before MAME, there were a ton of others. Sparkade.
Yeah.
I was emulating the ZX Spectrum on my PC XT, MSX. There's a whole history of emulators in the MS-DOS era. Actually, to Dave, he delved into these old emulators like with names like Nesticle and Genesist, for
I
example.
remember all these ones.
Yeah, a very bloody interface. Those were actually interesting times. The Amiga emulator that everybody uses. I mean, every software Amiga emulation comes from the unusable Amiga emulator.
Yeah, when
Now
you
it's universal or something like that, but it was totally unusable. And the same goes for the Super Nintendo. I remember running a Super Nintendo emulator on my 486, where only partially sprites were available, were visible, but it did something. You saw the code coming alive, and ever since those early days, 90s, I've been intrigued by emulation, and I was so. I mean, Retro Lim. We know Retro Lim, and I mean, that was a website. Emulator was actually a website I used to frequent, and to find out that that dude was actually behind the website and that he actually is also a medical doctor like me, and we share a lot of the same stuff. It's like, whoa. And Zofar domains, Emulatronia. I know Spanish and Italian. I mean, I can read it because of emulation, because the French, the Italians, the Spanish, the Brazilians. I mean, a lot of there's so many folk out there that have their entire retro gaming community. Also, I mean, it's very similar to ours. There's cross breeding, but cross breeding, cross information, but. Yeah, it's there's a whole world out there, and we're all the same. We want to play the games, and of course, having the real controller in your hand, and the physical media, of course.
It's all about the real controllers, isn't it? That's the difference, I think. I mean, playing a Commodore 64 game on my computer with a gamepad just isn't a Commodore 64. You've got to have a proper 8-bit joystick, whatever,
Yeah, well, the Mister, I got a new Mister. It has the snack, and also the one that Neil from the cave does. I've got that as well, and you actually get to hook up your old controllers and have them. And that's
interesting you mentioned that, because it took me a long time to come around to thinking that I want a Mister, because every people are, we can do this, we can do that. I'm thinking, I can do that on my PC, I can do that on the Raspberry Pi, and then it's lagging. And one of my mates, he had the Mist about 5 years ago, and I never quite knew what it was, but he came up to the house a couple of weeks ago. He brought the Mister up and he was taking me through it, and I thought, you know what, I've got to the stage, and I'm wanting to come on to a question shortly. I've got to the stage now where I've kind of peaked. I would never class myself as a collector. I buy things because I want to play them. So I've bought lots of systems like yourself, but I've now got to the stage. I've got to the top of the hill, and I'm now looking at my life, thinking, right, I've maybe got another 10 good years left in me, 20 if I'm lucky, 20 if I stop eating as much butter.
You stop running. Hey, you stop running. You stop running. Could be more.
So I'm thinking about maybe moving house in the next couple of years, and I mean, I've got 3 kind of arcade cabinets next door, which is going to be fun. But at the end of the day, you can move arcade cabinets fairly easy. But the thought of actually packing up, untangling all the wires that are behind there. I mean, I'm looking at my TV. What have I got there? I've got my PlayStation 4. I've got an Xbox. I've got a PlayStation 3, which isn't even plugged in. I've got the Xbox 360. I've got a Switch. I've got a Wii U, and I've got my Xbox Series X, and then I've got a Commodore 60. I've got a Commodore 64. I don't like the word, the Maxi, the full size one, and I've got the small one there as well. I've got so many systems, and that if I was to ever move house, the thought of having to pack all them up, and I don't know. So
what can happen? What can actually happen is, if you move house with your collection, then the moving company needs to have a second smaller truck to be able to move it all, because that actually happened to me in 2009 when I moved house. They figured, well, we need that amount of space, but my collection, very condensed. They needed and half an extra truck. So moving house with a collection, horrible. Fire hazard with all these old warts and and leaking capacitors and stuff. I mean, people's houses have been burning down because of all that old technology just being plugged in, right? It's a bit of a thing.
So I've got all that to think about. But so I thought to myself, Right, the Mister does sound like the thing that I want, because I've got a lovely Sony 32-inch Trinitron.
This one.
Nice. Is that the Retro Man Cave one?
No, this is a Portuguese one. And actually, it's all been stuck
Nice.
together with sellotape and stuff. This actually is an ailing mister because it's sort of overcooked. The board inside was overcooked. This is an extra thing. This more or less functions, but most of the time it doesn't.
Well,
I'm
that's
really not sure
unfortunate.
what to do with it. You could borrow this and see what it's like, but you really have to tinker with it and stuff. Might not be the best, but these things, you can't sell it. It's like semi-faulty. It's just temperamental. If you really are are wanting to check it out, yeah, this is the spider thing. USB sticking all over the place. If you like to tinker, yeah. The retro cave, Neil, the one they designed is really a very nice consoleized version. The old Mister has 3 boards stuck on top of each other. They have designed a motherboard where the Mister plugs in, and it basically is more like a console. It's just like it's like a Dreamcast. It sits and you just plug in your controller, or you use wireless controller. The SD card, this is very fiddly. There's 2 SD cards, and the one from Neil, it just slides in. It's just like so much nicer.
So for somebody who's completely thick like me, I just want to be able to. I'm all about playing the games, because one of the guys that watches my YouTube channel, Del Boy, he said you want to go and check. It's just actually on Friday there. He says Retro Man Cave does this really nice all-in-one. Now, right now, you probably know, Mark, you cannot get Misters for love nor money. They're just because of the chips. You can't. I actually had one ordered. It was an all-in-one jobby thing, and it was. And then it got pushed back to the end of January, and the guys messaged me to say they're now saying it's going to be the end of July.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that could move. So am I right in thinking, if I was to order one of Neil's all-in-one things, all I then need to do is get the Mister board and then plug it in, and then I'm good to go? Is that pretty much?
Well, you can actually have them built. What I did was I had a couple of these FPGA boards. I bought them years ago, like for 2 for the price of 1, some weird deal. So I had like 4 or something like that. And the Portuguese dude, he makes these excellent cases. He actually built a couple of Mister. This one there. I've more than one Mister. Not all I had to pay for. Most of them I did pay for, but I put this together myself. You can actually have, if you have a Dano 10 board, basically you need a Dano 10 board. You just slap it in. You can get that complete, but basically, yeah. You basically get it completely configured. The only thing that you need to do is download an image and flash that to an SD card, and then use the updater. And what the updater does is that it just downloads. You have to hook it up over the internet, and all Misters have like Ethernet, and you just plug it in, and then it just configures itself. And in the earlier days, perhaps a year ago, it was quite involved, like getting PSX2 up and running. But these days, it's actually quite doable. And I mean, if you're Linux savvy, you can actually telnet into it and FTP and whatever. But you
Yeah.
can also get out the SD card, and you have a set of ROM folders, basically just like you do with your CoinOps. You just
Mhm.
drag in the games, and this thing, it does PlayStation now. A month ago, it really didn't, or it did without sound, and now it does with sound. Only some
Oh,
things
well.
aren't.
Mhm.
It does PlayStation now, and um, it does MSX, it does BBC, it does the Archimedes. Actually, it does quite a fair few things that your CoinOp does. I mean, if you're not that much into optical based,
Yeah.
uh,
No.
than this. But also, this does optical things. It does Sega CD. There's a Saturn core in the works. A Jaguar core is in the works. PlayStation is just like it came out of nowhere, but the fact that that runs is just crazy. That's about the level of
Yeah. I,
oh,
I'm really
and
more about.
what it also does, sorry, what it also does is a 486 Windows 95 system with an S3 video card and a CD-ROM drive also. So, I mean, basically, if you're into your 2D Windows 95 or MS-DOS gaming,
That's
beats
that's
DOS
that's
box.
That's a jobby. Yeah, I think I'll. I did actually have a look yesterday at Retro Man Cave, so I think I'll need to order one of these, and then I just need to wait on the Mister board coming, and then that would be
Yeah.
I would be good to go.
There's a couple of variants, I guess they sell. Completely built or just a shell if you have your own stuff. The Portuguese dude that I got this from, he sells them complete built like this also. You might want to look into that as well because they're price wise they're pretty much similar. And there's a Spanish dude who sells one made from plexiglass. My original Dano 10 board came out of that, but it overheated, so it kind of is this because you really need proper cooling. This one, I'm not sure if you can see, it has
Hmm.
this typical Noctua, very small Noctua fan in there as well. So you really want to cool it because if you if you do PlayStation or a 486 and you play Quake or not Quake doesn't run, but Doom, well, or Hexen, it really gets hot.
I'll end up burning the house down, like you were saying. Yeah. So
Well, yeah.
that's pretty much why I've got to kind of I'm trying to future proof my. I mean, I don't think I've now hit the dizzy heights of 54 years old. I'm still as much. I wouldn't say I'm as
2
much
years
into.
younger.
I wouldn't say I'm as much into playing games, but I still love the fact that we're sitting just talking about old systems and really nerdy stuff. I'm never going to get to the point where I think, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. So I've got to kind of future proof it and think when I get moved into a sheltered accommodation or a retirement home, I want to have my next to my not my bidet, my thing that I sit on to do the toilet. I want to have my mister plugged into my
Your walker. Okay, I guess they use it. They use it. In the States, they use it a walker, right? Like,
yeah, a Zimmer frame. They call it a Zimmer frame.
ah,
And a Zimmer frame is nothing to do with the mister, by the way. But yeah, I want to have some way of playing my Commodore 64 games when I'm old and can't move. So I think the
yeah.
Mister's probably the way to go. Which leads me on to on a quick question I want to ask yourself, Mark. You've obviously got quite a sizable collection of stuff. Do you and have you ever considered or given it some thought about maybe it's time to start downsizing because
I actually already did. About 2 years ago, I did. There's this very, yeah. I like him, Marvin Droogsma. He's a big collector. Even Barry Freptic knows him. He sells, he resells. He's collecting, and I had come down with COVID. very nice 2 years ago, and I was just so fed up with having this collection. And doubles of doubles. I mean, how many Dreamcasts does one need? How many Net Zero's PlayStation development kits does one need? Saturns, and how many doubles of doubles of doubles? And I took some photographs and I showed them to Marvin. I said, I really would like to have this go to a nice home. And Marvin, he's a collector. He likes this stuff himself, but he also resells. That's the thing. But I knew that from him I was going to get a decent price. I knew he knew that I knew what I had. And
yeah.
Give that away for a tenner or something. So yeah, he was interested, and I just went through the process, and it actually was physical therapy, bringing the stuff down from the attic and from the game room, and the thing is, I still have a very large collection. I think about 2/3 or half or 2/3 has gone.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was actually the truck that was extra in my move in 2009. Actually, the same truck, similar truck, Marvin took away, which paid for PlayStation 5 and quite a few other computer upgrades and stuff, and some saving, and my game room is a lot nicer. There's still stuff in there, but it's more like a relaxing place, and I found that having less can actually feel like more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember there was a guy that used to go to the computer club that I go to every month in Edinburgh, and he decided he had some of the really obscure systems. He had like the Commodore 64. What was it again? It was the Commodore 64 with the built-in screen and all that kind of stuff. Some really rare stuff. He had like the Marty Towns. I don't think he had a Sharp X68000, but he had some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And then this one day he decided, I want to get rid of it all. And I went to his house, and I kid you not, he had 3 bedrooms, and it was just like floor to ceiling shelves. Everything. I mean, I don't know how. I would hate to imagine how many not hundreds of thousands, but he had tens of thousands of games. He had every single system you can imagine. And I thought I wouldn't want a collection like that, because when you've got so much, it just you get completely overawed with it. And as you say, when you've got too much stuff, you don't use anything. Whereas if you kind of cut back and get rid of stuff that you don't use, you can actually see things and think, oh, I quite fancy playing there's the Atari 2600. I think I'll dig that out and have a game of Space Invaders. When you've just got stuff and top of stuff, and it got to the point where, I mean, even I had like in my old house, I had like minimum shelves, or shelf space. So I had like Xbox 360 games on the shelf. Then in front of them, I would have PlayStation 2. So I couldn't even see what was behind. And what's the point of that? It's utterly pointless.
I was double stacking myself.
It's insane. And one of the things that I used to sort of think about was, I don't want, and I know I'm getting really, really morbid here, but we're all getting older. I don't want to get to the point where I'm incapable of I get seriously ill when I'm in hospital, whatever, and all this stuff's just going to be sitting here, and my daughter, as I said to her, one day this will all be yours. all this shite will belong to you. Now, no disrespect, but she wouldn't have a clue about 80% of what it is. She knows, if she saw a PlayStation 4, I know about that. If she looked at the I don't know, the original Xbox, she wouldn't know what it was. And what would concern me was she would potentially put an advert in Facebook or whatever, and somebody would come along and go, right, I'll give you 20 quid for the Dreamcast, and I'll give you 10,
Well,
and
I
you know,
mean,
and I don't want that.
it's good to think about that, because I actually saw that happening. A good friend of mine, he actually died early this year, and he was a nerd, and he actually had one of these firms that created these Android handhelds. That's how we met. But he died, and his wife and son were left with a lot of technical things, hardware, systems and stuff, and they had no clue. So she actually had put up some ads, to sell stuff locally, and some people showed some interest, and some of them some of the things she already sold. But I was just visiting and going through the stuff, and I said, "You don't know what you're selling." I mean, she actually had he traveled a lot, and with KLM, that's the Dutch Royal Air, flying company. If you travel business class, people get these Dutch houses that have liquor contained in them. These things they can sell for hundreds and hundreds of euros, pounds, and she had put them up for 20. And I was just like, and there was a person coming to the house and said, "Well, you're not going to." And I quickly looked up online, and I showed her, a site, and she got very stressed because of that, And you don't want to have people dealing with when you're not there anymore, and then this stuff that's potential crap or not, because to a layman, everything looks like crap, and to the other one, it's like, oh, that's that rare label. That's an Atari 2600 ET cartridge, that everyone was talking about. I can sell it for $500,000.
Or do you think about it? A Vectrex box. I mean, I've still got. I had 3 Vectrexes, and I sold one just about a month ago, because I don't need 3.
I have 3, even when yeah.
That's what I mean. I've got 2 because I'm conscious one could break, and the way I look at it is, if something was to break, could I replace it? Yes, I could. The Vectrex is harder to find, and you're going to pay big money. But something like a Vectrex box, if you toss away a Vectrex box, you're potentially tossing away 100 quid. Potentially, I mean, that's the kind of the stupid part of it. And I actually I've always kind of thought that something. This is where, like, guys like ourselves, we should sit down and say, right, you tell your missus, if anything happens to you, give old Mamemeister a shout. He'll give him a list of everything that your ex your deceased husband had, and I'll give you a value of what you need to sell that for. Because even like I don't know, a Dreamcast VMU unit, whatever, I don't know what they sell for. They're maybe sell for 20-30 quid. You would look at that and go,
even more. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they would be substantially more even.
Things that are, I mean, a Vectrex controller, they go for like 80 quid, 90 quid.
Yeah.
You would look at it and go, that's rubbish. Just throw it in the bucket.
Really? Do they go for that amount of money? Because I've like a ton of Vectrex extras, there must be a lot of Vectrexes without controllers out there,
And the overlays as well, they go for insane money as well. The funny thing is, in the UK, I think it was only, there's a store, I don't know if it's just unique to the UK, I think it is called Woolworths. It started, I don't know when it started, but they were like big. They were a big kind of store in the sort of 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And I think they were the only store that used to sell the Vectrex. I remember as a snotty-nosed teenager going up to Woolworths, and I would be looking about, and there was a ColecoVision that always had Donkey Kong, and there was they never had the Atari 2600. It was always the ColecoVision because that looked nice, and they had this thing called the Vectrex, and It was like, oh, that's quite weird. And I had the Vectrex thing, and you could play it and all that. And all the games, if you go into eBay now, I will guarantee if you look at a game that's been sold in the UK, it will have about 4 or 5 stickers. It'll have like £5.99, £4.99. Half the games that I've got were sold for like £1.50. Now that game will go for 50 quid because you couldn't get rid of them. Nobody wanted the Vectrex. It was shite. Nobody wanted it.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's things that have no perceived value are actually worth stuff. But then you've got the other end of the scale. I've started. Well, I've finished now, but I rather foolishly. I built up a decent collection of the old Astro Wars and their Galaxy 1000. All these, I call them LCD. I know they're not vacuum display, whatever it is, VFDs or something. I got about 25 of these about 10 years ago, and I had no room for them, so they were up in the loft, sitting doing nothing. And then when I decided I wanted to get a MAME camp built, I thought, how am I going to fund that? Tell you what, I'll dig out these machines, and I had a look at them. So I put buy it now, 200 quid. This guy came along, gave me 200 quid for the lot. And then it was a couple of years later, I thought, I wish I'd still kept them. I would love to have them again. So about 6 months ago, I started rebuying them, and dearie me, the prices have quadrupled. People are what I was picking up for £10, they're now going for 40, 50 quid. And there's people trying to sell them for like 100 quid. There's even some people trying to sell them for 300 quid. And there was a guy selling, it was a Galaxy Invader. It was by CGL Electronics. He was selling this Galaxy Invader, the box.
Sorry. The wife,
That's okay,
the wife came home and she was like, hi.
Sorry. Listen, how long? We're an hour and 20. When do you want to call it a day? I don't want to keep you all day.
We've been going for about
an hour and 20.
We could do it again sometime soon.
Listen, why don't we? It's a 1 hour 21. We'll go for 1.5 hours, another 9 minutes. Cool. So this guy was selling this Atari, this Galaxy Invader for the box for 30 quid, and I realised it's just the box. It's just the box he's selling for 30 quid, and then if you look further down, he's selling the polystyrene inserts for 30 quid.
He's not apart, selling them.
So he's wanting 60 quid for the packaging. He's not even selling the machine. I ended up buying one for, I think it was 45 quid, and it's immaculate. The box is in, I would say it's mint, but the box is in fantastic condition. The polystyrene inserts look brand new. So there's people who are completely overvaluing stuff as well. You know what I mean? But
there's always been these rumors that people like us, like the retro game YouTubers, they drive up the prices because they're the ones that do the collecting and showing of the games and stuff. But selling your things and buying something that you enjoy in here and now, it's not a bad thing. I guess what put me off for a long time doing that is because whenever I gave something away, I love giving stuff away. I always would get regret, and I'll get myself another copy. Or you would see, YouTubers, in the retro gaming, people that we know also that go through that cycle of, selling off all the stuff, having being done with it, and then reacquiring all that stuff, selling it again, and basically that's just you end up buying the same stuff for more money, and you don't want to have that cycle going on too much because you're just bleeding money,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for me it's like you can actually see a set of retro gamer magazines, right? Now, the old me 2 years ago would still go for the full set. I actually, at some point, was going to go for the full set of Retro Gamer magazines because why?
Yeah.
And now I don't have the full set. I have the first couple. I was buying them loose here and there, and I mean, over in the Netherlands, not all shops would have them. It's like, yeah, a bit of a novelty, and I'm just satisfied with what I have, and I'm subscribed. I have been finally, so the rest is all complete. But yeah, things like this, very cool stuff. There's Zap. You got the Crash. You have and you have an Amiga variant. I just buy one or two because I like, but I'm not gonna go for that entire series. And yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps I'm not supporting the person's creating these, but yeah, I just don't want to have all that stuff anymore.
It becomes. I can tell you a quick story. I bought. I've got every. Well, sorry. I bought the very first edition of Retro Gamer, and I had every single one. And then I'm not being funny, but I mean when I moved into this house, I've got a cupboard upstairs, and if you imagine, I don't know, I had about 4 feet high of magazines times two. Boom. Like you're probably talking about 1,000 magazines, and I was one of these people. If anybody that was getting rid of magazines, oh, do you want them? Yeah, 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 that's great. And I would buy them and I'd pick them up, and I think this is great. I just love having things I can go back and look. So if somebody says to me, "Oh, I would love to look at issue 5 of Zap," hang on, here we go, here it's here.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I can't remember. So I was buying. I had every single edition of Retro Gamer up till about 6 months ago, and I was sitting looking at this cupboard, and I'm thinking I actually had about the last 3 years worth of Retro Gamer magazines weren't even opened. The last one I looked at, it was all PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 3 games. I think I've got no interest in it now. I'm not going to badmouth the magazine, because at the end of the day, they're doing a thing which is nice. There's no other kind of things. Well, there are a lot of fanzines, and Chris Wilkins is obviously doing stuff with Zap now.
Yeah,
But I found the actual writing in these magazines very, very dry. And what I find quite surprising is, considering I've been in this hobby pretty much since the advent of the internet, since Yak Yak, since Jeff Minter and all these, I know, and people criticise me saying, "Oh, I'm just kind of bumming myself." I'm not. I know lots and lots and lots of people from the old days, because I've been in it since the very beginning, and I don't know any the guys that write for Retro Gamer. I don't know them. I've never heard of them. And some days I think to myself, people like myself, people like you, we could do a better job. We could. It's all about the passion, and I find sometimes with Retro Gamer, I find it very, very quite dull and quite boring.
I like the magazine. I mean, basically also because it's one of the few, that actually cater for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is, opening it up, reading through it, having read quite a few of them, of course. I mean, the retro gaming material. I mean, it's a limited amount of information, So
yeah,
there have been PlayStation 2 specials, and there have been, and the thing is, I will keep being subscribed to it for quite a bit, I guess, but. I mean, we've been at this for a long time, and reading about the origin of the Neo Geo CD. I mean, how many times can you read about the origin of the Neo Geo CD? And of course, they do a fantastic job. But for me, it's like the same information all over again, and. Yeah, I guess everything gets stale from one's own perspective. You can only do something so long.
you can only read so many making of Manic Minors and whatever, because you've read it. And what I find is, and again, this isn't a boast because some people would probably say I'm quite sad, but I tend to know more than what I'm reading about. Like people, I listen to some podcasts and they'll say, "Oh, we're going to be talking to Jeff Minter." Jeff Minter, it says here he did the Hover Bother. Hover Bother, don't remember that game, and I'm thinking, how can you not know Hover Bother? You know, we're from like the very, very early days, whereas people that have got much more successful YouTube channels than you and I, they're a lot younger. They don't have the same knowledge, and I think that's how you and I still maintain.
Yeah, but the thing is, our knowledge, it didn't take any effort because we were living it.
We were living it at the time. Yeah.
And what I do appreciate it is, especially the younger folk. They're like in their early 30s, sometimes late 20s. If you see the level of interest they have and the way they dig up the stories, I mean, I quite like to view the newer documentary type things. Because it's a very interesting perspective, because you actually get to see how we experienced it and what our thoughts were, like we know the stuff, we lived it. And then you have, it's like the 70s show, like it's like, yeah, it's a different perspective.
Aye.
But it's not it's not like we experienced it, but it's like how they experience it and what they find important. And then you see that certain games that are just like, yeah, man, that Jeff Minter game. I mean, if you don't know that, you don't know the rest. I mean, and for them, it might be completely different because they view it from a different angle, and I quite like that.
Of course, it is. It's nice. You can't, it's. I don't want to turn into some grumpy old git that goes, it was better back in our days, these young ones. It's fantastic that younger people, I mean, I love going to places like Play Blackpool and you see all these kids genuinely enjoying all these old games and all that. But I bet you if you asked anyone for Retro Gamer who wrote Transylvanian Tower on the Spectrum, I bet they wouldn't know that, and I know you'll know it. Who wrote Blabby? Who wrote who wrote, what would you call it? Barmy Burgers on the Spectrum? It was Blabby Software.
Blabby Software, yeah.
Richard Shepherd Software. Do you remember them? They were one of the most diabolically bad. They wrote these awful base. Other games were written in BASIC. But my point is, and we know real nerdy stuff. We remember games. Don't ask me.
Yeah, I mean. We know that because we were the ones actually looking at the tapes.
Yes, we were
being only able to buy one, or the car boot thing that you told so many stories about. Like these
markets.
No, but I think it's our experience that makes it feel different for us, and. I can understand how it could also be like aliens invading, like what do they know? And sometimes they don't know, or they don't know the how and the why, and that's why I love, all the old folk that were there. That are also putting out stuff, the Vulcans to Vultures to, the Amiga book. That kind of stuff is great, and I guess Retro Gamer. I mean, it doesn't only cater to us; it also caters to a younger demography, and then you need the repeats, and you need the more fresh faces, the different perspective, I mean, when we talk about shooters, we go back, we even go back to simple gameplay. And you were saying things, and I was imagining Centipede on the 2600. I mean, as basic as it is, getting a high score with that square and the rectangles and the fuzzy things that go down that are supposed to be a sentence. That's just the video pack, the Odyssey games.
Yep.
And if you're talking about a shooter or Robotron, then you think about that, and we have that in our brains, and the other ones are going like, oh yeah, Halo. I mean, imagine having Halo as the first video game you played. Mine was Binatone Pong.
Yeah.
Video games, and yours too, and it's like being able to move, being able to have your television turn into something you could interact with.
Yeah, it was mind blowing.
That was something. Being able to choose. I mean, even video recorders. I always forgot. VHS. Being able to record the TV. It's like mind blown. And then MP3s. I mean,
yeah.
I had a huge load of MP3s, and now it's like, I've still got stacks of these CDs with MP3s on them. I can still play them in my car stereo, but I invested a lot of time into creating, downloading MP3, and now it's like your phone, Spotify, Deezer, it's like, and you have every single track available to you in the world. Yeah. Mind blowing. I mean, and if we are talking about MP3 and what that means to us, I mean, younger kids who stream and like, are you insane?
Yeah.
Meeting up with someone, having to wait for them to maybe turn up or not without one of these.
Now you go into your car and you're halfway to your work and you go, I've not got my phone, you panic. What am I going to do? I'm going to die.
Or 5% battery. What do you do? You stop living.
Insane. Anyway, listen, Mark, I think that's an hour and a half. Are you up for making this maybe once a month or something, Sunday morning?
We could do it more. I mean, if the viewer. Yeah. At first, we need to make sure that it actually recorded this time.
Well, it does say end broadcast, so it's definitely recorded.
But sure. I mean,
which is good.
I should have done this a lot sooner and more, because I really miss the interaction. Maybe it's the pandemic thing, but connecting more is nice.
I mean, I've written about half a dozen questions, and we've only looked at 2 of them. You know what I mean? So there's a million things, and I think what I'm going to do is this will go as a podcast. This is actually perfect. I mean, obviously, we're both devilishly good-looking guys, eye candy for the ladies. But you know what? It's perfect as podcast material as well.
Distracting.
I mean, we're obviously going to distract people. So, listen, Mark, I've honestly got to say you're one of the nicest, most genuine people on YouTube, and I mean that absolutely sincerely. And I'm honoured to call you a friend, and we need to make this happen more often, mate.
Right,
I mean, just very quickly before I go, before I let you go, I was actually telling my girlfriend about, I can't remember when it was, about 8 years ago, I was getting belittled at work. People were taking the piss out of me because I had a YouTube channel, and I took my channel offline. And then I think it was you and a couple other guys, why are you doing this? And I had some amazing feedback, don't let these people, they're just idiots. And then I put the website back up about 2 days later, and I distinctly remember I had just ticked over to 500 subscribers, and when I went back on, it was down to 26. I don't know what happened. And then you put out a video basically telling people what had happened, asking people to subscribe to my channel, and you shared it, and a couple of people shared your video, and and then within about 2 days, I think I went up to 600 subscribers. So I've got you to thank for where I am now. As I says, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, mate. And
you got yourself to thank for it as well, because you decided not to be afraid anymore and just be yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely. It's like anything. I dye my beard. I dye my beard. I don't. I mean, there's like talking about video games, dyeing beards. If you tell people stuff, they can't come back at you. Oh, look at you! You dye your beard. Yeah, I know. I told you that. And it's like talking about video games. I always remember after I put my YouTube channel back up, I actually went onto my personal Facebook. I mean, I tend to keep my video game stuff separate. I've got my Mamemeister Facebook page for links or whatever, because 99% of people that are on my Facebook aren't interested in watching my videos. But I put up a post saying, as some of you may know, I like running, but I also like video games, and I've got a YouTube channel, and I put a link to my YouTube channel on my Alan Stewart Facebook page. And I remember being out, I was at a works night out a couple of months later, and the director of the company I was working for at the time, he goes, "Oh, I was watching some of your videos. They're brilliant. I remember Pac-Man, and I remember this."
Cool.
And I think it's, you know what? I think YouTube I have grown in confidence so much as a person, and it's helped me. I used to be terrified of interviews, job interviews. Now I'm like, whatever. You know,
makes you more confident. And gaming, it's just a while ago. I was in a meeting, an online meeting from my study, and the camera was pointing higher a bit, but there's this Commodore 64 box up there. And one of my colleagues, he saw that, and later on he approached me and said, "You know, you still have a Commodore 64?" And then came out all these stories about, you know, I said, "Yeah, still have one," and he actually acquired one. So and he is enjoying gaming now
because he saw it on your video.
Think it was for kids, you know. So yeah, so it's a good thing. And you with your boss, you know, it's like cool. I even had a postman. He always came bringing parcels, and we got to know each other. And I said, and somehow I explained, yeah, there's a Commodore 64 in there, and he was like, "Oh, Commodore 64." I actually ended up giving him one of my spare systems. And he was not on his route for like years afterwards. And a couple of months ago, I encountered him again, and he came up to me and said, "Oh man, I'm so happy that you got me back into that Commodore 64 again."
You're still using it.
He
That is awesome.
even got the 1701 monitor, which still is a holy grail for me. I don't have it, but that's the single thing I want to get still.
Awesome. Well, I'll keep a lookout for you. So, anyway, listen, Mark. Well, yeah, I just want to thank you for joining me. We will make this happen. Please let us know, guys, what you think of this, if you enjoy it. And finally, guys, thank you very, very much for watching. Till next time. See ya.
Bye.
Good stuff, Mark. Listen, thanks, buddy. That was good fun. I'm virtually available any kind of Sunday. Is Sunday kind of best day for you generally for things?
I guess around this time on a Sunday is end of the morning, noonish. Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to say we'll do it once a week, whatever. Even if we went like monthly, whatever, we'll be in touch and we'll get this going.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool hanging out. It's nice to relate. And if you do put it up, I'm more than willing to have a sort of small thing up, you know, pointing everyone towards yours. So I mean, if you do make it a video or video and a podcast, you know, I mean, more than happy to just you know, have a snippet up to lure them, and then just a link.
And if it's popular, you're welcome. If you want to do it on your channel, you host it in. I don't know what Lactobacillus. I can't even say your name.
Yeah, right the first time.
I'll call you Mark. Mark and Chums talk Pish. With Mamemeister, you can have your own version. I don't know what that is in Dutch, talks Pish, but yeah. And listen, buddy, I'll let you go. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, man, and I'll see you soon, eh?
Grab some food.
Okay then, buddy. Take care, man. See you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.